Atlanta, April 2nd, 9:30 a.m. The house smelled like oatmeal and bleach, the smell of old habits. I stood in my kitchen holding my chipped blue mug, the same one I've used since 1991. In the next room, Marcus's voice carried low and sharp, the kind of tone men use when they think the walls are loyal. "It's just business," he said into the phone. "Ruth doesn't need to know." 32 years of marriage, and I knew the sound of a lie pretending to be a favor. His footsteps crossed the den. Mine stayed still. I kept my eyes on the sink, listening. "Yes, before June 10th, he said. "The sooner we close, the better." Close what? When he hung up, he looked into the kitchen with that polite, cashier smile. "Morning, morning," I said. "Who were you talking to?" "Work stuff. You wouldn't like it. Technical." "I like technical," I said. "It's the emotional I can't stand." He laughed once, walked out the door, and the house fell into that strange silence only guilt leaves behind. On the counter sat a manila folder I hadn't touched in years, Deed 2011 written in my own handwriting. I'd pulled it out last night while cleaning drawers and forgotten to put it away. Maybe the past had better timing than I thought. I opened it. 2 signatures, Marcus Carter and Ruth Carter. The county seal, raised and stubborn. No transfer stamp, no quitclaim. Just the ink that said we owned this house together. I ran my thumb over the paper and felt a pulse I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't nostalgia. It was warning. The screen of my phone lit up. April 2nd, 9:41 a.m. Marcus had left less than a minute ago. I wrote it down on a sticky note. He left after saying, "Close by June 10th. I've kept receipts my whole life, literal ones. Some women collect recipes, I collect evidence." By noon, I'd convinced myself it was nothing. Then the email came. Subject: account hold, suspicious activity, only my debit card. I called Marcus. "Bank says my account's frozen." "Yeah," he said casually. "Fraud alert. They'll fix it." "Why only mine?" "Because you use it more." "Not lately," I said. "Ruth, please, it's just business." That line again. Just business. It landed different this time, heavier. I hung up and stared at the manila folder. 32 years, and suddenly, I was the liability on the balance sheet. I put the folder on the dining table, next to my mug, and started a list in neat accountant's print. 1. Check property portal. 2. Confirm deed. 3. Find who's buying outside. The crepe myrtle hadn't bloomed yet. Inside, something else was starting to. I slid the folder into my tote and whispered to the quiet room, "Marcus, if this is business, then you just entered the audit." Subscribe to our channel. This helps our work reach more people. By noon, the sky was the color of old paper and my hands smelled like lemon soap. I needed groceries, rice, lemons, detergent, and I needed to feel ordinary again. I drove to the Kroger on Ponce, humming a hymn I didn't believe in, and loaded my cart like a woman with purpose. Total at checkout, $82.43. I swiped my card. The machine blinked, declined. The cashier, young, sweet, probably 20, tried again. Louder beep this time. Declined. She leaned closer, voice gentle but public. "Maybe try another." People looked. That's what shame does. It draws a crowd. I handed her a different card. Approved. I smiled like I hadn't just been erased in front of strangers. In the parking lot, I sat behind the wheel and checked my phone. Email from the bank. Temporary hold. Suspicious activity. Only my account. Again. I called Marcus. He picked up like a man expecting applause. "Hey, Ruth. Took care of that. Fraud team's just overreacting." "Funny," I said. "They only reacted to my card. Nothing personal. It's just business." I could almost hear him grin. "Marcus," I said, steady, "did you make a transfer this morning?" Silence. Then, "I'm handling finances. You should relax." "I'll relax when my money behaves like it belongs to me." He chuckled. "You always did love your lists." "And you always did love my balance sheets," I said, then hung up before the conversation could pretend to be civil. The air inside the car went heavy, like something unspoken had taken the passenger seat. I opened my bank app. The hold was placed 11:02 a.m. Marcus had left the house at 9:41, 41 minutes to freeze me out. At home, I cleared a corner of the dining table, the battlefield, and laid out what I had: the 2011 deed, the bank email, the sticky note from that morning. He said June 10th. I drew 2 columns on my yellow pad. His moves: freeze my account, set closing date, hide the buyer. My receipts: certified deed, email proof, folder ready. It looked like the start of a war ledger, and maybe it was. At 4:15, my son called. Caleb. My only one. His voice came through like a younger version of Marcus. Same tone, different heart. Mom, he said, Dad told me about the card thing. He says it's just a mix-up. You're reading too much into it. I read for a living, Caleb. Numbers, not people. Numbers don't lie. Mom, he sighed. He's trying to clean up some debts. If you make this a big deal, it'll... Expose him? I asked. Embarrass him, he said quietly. Then maybe embarrassment is overdue, I said. Ask your father who's buying the house. He said you're confused. And you believed him? A long silence. Then, Mom, please, don't start a war over a misunderstanding. I don't start wars, I said. I audit them. When he hung up, I stared at the flowers Marcus had brought the night before, white orchids, already curling brown at the edges. Beautiful things die fast when they're used as excuses. The house felt smaller, the air too still. I reached for my phone and typed the name I hadn't spoken in years. Elaine Foster, notary. Her contact photo was still a little cactus on her desk. I didn't call. Not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop, logged into the county property site, and searched our address. 1248 Briarwood. Owner, Marcus Carter and Ruth Carter. Status, active, no transfer recorded. Good. My name was still there. For now. The cursor blinked on the screen, waiting for my next move. I whispered to it the same thing I used to say to my calculator at work when the numbers wouldn't lie fast enough. Show me what he's hiding. Then I clicked print. By noon, the sky was the color of old paper, and my hands smelled like lemon soap. I needed groceries, rice, lemons, detergent, and I needed to feel ordinary again. I drove to the Kroger on Ponce, humming a hymn I didn't believe in, and loaded my cart like a woman with purpose. Total at checkout, 82 and 43s. I swiped my card. The machine blinked, declined. The cashier, young, sweet, probably 20, tried again. Louder beep this time, declined. She leaned closer, voice gentle but public. Maybe try another? People looked. That's what shame does. It draws a crowd. I handed her a different card. Approved. I smiled like I hadn't just been erased in front of strangers. In the parking lot, I sat behind the wheel and checked my phone. Email from the bank. Temporary hold. Suspicious activity. Only my account. Again. I called Marcus. He picked up like a man expecting applause. Hey, Ruth, took care of that. Fraud team's just overreacting. Funny, I said. They only reacted to my card. Nothing personal. It's just business. I could almost hear him grin. Marcus, I said, steady. Did you make a transfer this morning? Silence. Then, I'm handling finances. You should relax. I'll relax when my money behaves like it belongs to me. He chuckled. You always did love your lists. And you always did love my balance sheets, I said, then hung up before the conversation could pretend to be civil. The air inside the car went heavy, like something unspoken had taken the passenger seat. I opened my bank app. The hold was placed 11:02 a.m. Marcus had left the house at 9:41. 41 minutes to freeze me out. At home, I cleared a corner of the dining table, the battlefield, and laid out what I had. The 2011 deed. The bank email. The sticky note from that morning. He said June 10th. I drew 2 columns on my yellow pad. His moves: freeze my account, set closing date, hide the buyer. My receipts: certified deed, email proof, folder ready. It looked like the start of a war ledger, and maybe it was. At 4:15, my son called. Caleb, my only one. His voice came through like a younger version of Marcus, same tone, different heart. Mom, he said, Dad told me about the card thing. He says it's just a mix-up. You're reading too much into it. I read for a living, Caleb. Numbers, not people. Numbers don't lie. Mom, he sighed. He's trying to clean up some debts. If you make this a big deal, it'll... Expose him? I asked. Embarrass him, he said quietly. Then maybe embarrassment is overdue, I said. Ask your father who's buying the house. He said you're confused. And you believed him? A long silence. Then, Mom, please, don't start a war over a misunderstanding. I don't start wars, I said. I audit them. When he hung up, I stared at the flowers Marcus had brought the night before. White orchids, already curling brown at the edges. Beautiful things die fast when they're used as excuses. The house felt smaller, the air too still. I reached for my phone and typed the name I hadn't spoken in years. Elaine Foster, notary. Her contact photo was still a little cactus on her desk. I didn't call. Not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop, logged into the county property site, and searched our address. 1248 Briarwood. Owner, Marcus Carter and Ruth Carter. Status, active. No transfer recorded. Good. My name was still there. For now. The cursor blinked on the screen, waiting for my next move. I whispered to it the same thing I used to say to my calculator at work when the numbers wouldn't lie fast enough. Show me what he's hiding. Then I clicked print. April 4th wore a clean sky. I buckled the manila folder into the passenger seat like a small, stubborn child and drove to the county clerk's office on Memorial Drive. The lobby smelled like floor wax and tired hope. A man argued about a lien. A woman held a birth certificate like it was air. Certified copy of a warranty deed, I said at the plexiglass. Recorded May 12th, 2011. Owners, Marcus and Ruth Carter. The clerk stamped my request with a heavy thunk. 10 minutes later, she slid a crisp copy under the window. The county seal rose under my thumb like truth with a spine. Any transfers since 2011? I asked. She checked the screen. No, ma'am. Both names. No subsequent filings. I nodded, wrote the time in my notebook, 9:48 a.m., and held the paper up to the light. Ink that doesn't smudge. My name didn't just exist. It resisted. On the drive home, my phone lit with an old friend. Ruth? Elaine's voice was Sunday morning warm. Your voicemail said, warranty deed. What's going on? I need eyes on the registry, I said, and an answer to a simple question. If one co-owner refuses to sign, can a sale proceed? Not with insurance, she said, and nobody closes without title insurance. Parcel ID? I read it off. Paper rustled on her end. There you are, she said. Still co-owners. No POA on file. If someone's trying to be slick, they're about to meet friction. I smiled. I brought sandpaper. When I pulled into my driveway, a glossy mailer leaned against the door, smiling realtor faces, a Sharpie note on the back. Strong buyer can close by 6:10, JT. The postmark said April 1st. The track had been laid before I heard the train. Inside, I spread the day across my dining table. Certified deed, county note, mailer. I was lining up pieces like a woman sewing a quilt that would warm a courtroom. At 6:12 p.m., Marcus came home with supermarket roses loud enough to drown out intent. For my lady, he said, setting the bouquet on my placemat. Water beaded down the cellophane like sweat. Busy day? I asked. Productive, he said, loosening his tie. Don't worry about the finances. I'm smoothing things. Smooth is for tablecloths, I said. Money needs corners. He grinned, moved toward his briefcase, then thought better of it. While he showered, I lifted the roses. Beneath the wet stems, a legal envelope lay half-tucked, Jackson Title Midtown peeking like a guilty eye. The flap wasn't sealed. Arrogance forgets glue. I slid out the contents. A preliminary HUD draft, tidy columns, one line that turned my mouth into chalk. Seller, Marcus Carter, alone. No space for me. No, and Ruth Carter. I took a photo, slid it back, and wiped water from the table with the dish towel that still smelled like lemons. He came out toweling his hair. We could do takeout, he said, casual. I'm full, I answered, and let the silence measure him. Later, when the house went soft with night, I wrote a single line under receipts. My name stands. His paper doesn't. Then I tucked the certified deed on top of the manila folder and closed the brass fastener with a click that sounded like a door locking from my side. By the window, the crepe myrtle held tight, green and patient, as if it knew I'd need its shade for what comes next. I turned off the lamp. In the dark, the county seal on my copy kept catching the streetlight. It looked like a coin he couldn't steal. April 6th, 8:42 a.m., my phone sang cheerful like it hadn't read my calendar. Mrs. Carter? Jenna from Peachtree and Pine Realty. Quick question, are you entertaining offers? My name is on the deed, I said, pouring coffee. What number are we entertaining? She didn't blink. Comps say $485,000, maybe more if we move before Memorial Day. 485. I wrote it on a sticky note, big as a billboard. And who told you I was selling? A JT. Pulled comps last week, she said. Wants to close by June 10th. There it was again, June 10th, humming under everything. Email me the comps, I said, and copy both owners. We signed together. Of course, she said, professional and curious. We both heard what I was really saying. Marcus hit the kitchen at noon smelling like a dealership handshake. Lunch? He offered, bright. We can toast to 485, I said. His eyes did the math. Where'd you get that? Atlanta Talks, I said. And buyers call the woman whose name is still on the deed. He smiled thin enough to cut. We should discuss a payout, Ruth. Privately. In this house or at Jackson Title, Room B, June 10th at 10 a.m.? He blinked. Who's been calling you? Your consequences, I said. They found reception. He stepped closer, dropped his voice. Don't make this ugly. I don't make. I measure. I laid my palm on the manila folder, and I measured a HUD that forgot my name. He reached for the folder by instinct. I didn't move my hand. Touch it, and I'll put the county clerk on speaker. His jaw worked. You always were dramatic. I always was accurate. My phone buzzed. Email from Jenna with PDF comps, subject line neat as a verdict. I angled the screen so he could see the number again. Markets like signatures, Marcus. 2 of them. He exhaled through his nose, the sound men make when the sale goes sideways. Fine. If we do this together, I'll wire you $150,000 day of closing. Or, I said gently, you wire me $242,500, which is half of $485,000, less fees we both approve in writing. You won't get that after, we can do math, I said. Like 1991. He tried on a softer voice. You hate those sterile closing rooms. Let me handle it for you. You tried, with a waiver, I said, and a letter that said I was unavailable due to health concerns. I danced at Zumba on Tuesday. Color rose in his face. You went through my things. I went through my house. He picked up his keys, set them down. Don't block me. I won't block a fair sale, I said, calm as a ledger. I will block theft. The front door felt his temper before it felt his hand. It rattled when he left. I stared at the sticky note on the table, $485,000, and felt something harden in me that wasn't bitterness. It was math with a backbone. At 2:13 p.m., Caleb's text chimed. Dad says you're overreacting. He's fixing finances. Please don't blow this up. I typed, deleted, typed again, then sent. I'm not blowing. I'm documenting. By 5, the dining table looked like a quiet war room. Comps on the left, deed on top, my pen laid like a fuse. I added a page titled Costs of Doing Business, Attorney on Call 1,750, New account opened, appraisal fee if needed, $550. If he wanted to call it business, I would invoice the season. The doorbell rang at 6:05. A courier handed me a white envelope, handoff only. Inside, a polite letter from Jackson Title. We look forward to your participation at closing. My name spelled right. My role implied wrong. I placed it under the certified deed, then balanced my blue mug on top like a paperweight. Outside, the crepe myrtle finally showed the blush of first bloom. Inside, I marked the calendar square around June 10th with a neat, unbroken line. Some dates you don't cross out. April 8th rained sideways, beating the porch rail like a warning. Marcus arrived at 7:12 p.m. with orchids big as moths and a bakery box tied in cheerful string. Truce, he said, setting the bouquet on the dining table, right on top of my notes. "I'm not at war," I said. "I'm at work." He slid the bakery box toward me. "Peach tart, your favorite." I untied the string. No tart. Inside, a crisp stack of papers flagged with neon tabs. Acknowledgement of homestead waiver and consent to sale. "Just a formality," he said lightly. "Title likes things tidy. I can sign for you so you don't have to sit in that cold room." "Sign for me," I repeated, tasting the words. "That's generous." "It doesn't change your cut," he added. "Think of it as convenience." I read the first paragraph out loud. "Waives any and all rights. Appoints Marcus Carter as attorney in fact." I looked up. "If I sign this, you don't need me at closing." "You hate those rooms," he said. "Let me spare you." "You're not sparing me. You're erasing me." I slid the pages back into the box. "Who drafted it?" "Our attorney," he said. "Ruth, I'm trying to keep this civil." "Civil is 2 chairs. He leaned in, palms flat. "I'll wire you $150,000 the morning of closing. Clean, no drama." "Half of the current value is $225,000, I said. "Drama is when a number lies." He smiled without heat. "You won't see that after fees." "We'll approve the fees together," I said. "Like 1991. His voice dropped. "Don't turn this into a spectacle. Stop writing scripts that require one." He tapped the box. "Sign it." "No." He exhaled, then switched tactics. "At least read this for the file." He slid a single sheet from under the orchids. Letterhead I didn't know. "To whom it may concern. Mrs. Carter is unavailable due to health concerns and will not attend closing." The date was yesterday. "Health concerns?" I said, almost laughing. "I held tree pose at yoga this morning." His eyes flicked to my tote, clocking the recorder clipped to the strap. "You're recording me." "Georgia is one-party consent," I said. "Today, I'm the party." He straightened, the salesman back on his feet. "You're making a mistake." "At my age," I said, "mistakes get stapled to the right file. This isn't one." Lightning flickered behind him. For a moment, the orchids threw giant shadows across my binders. Beauty playing bodyguard for deceit. I lifted the vase to wipe a water ring and felt paper under it. Another copy of the waiver, folded flat. "Marcus," I said quietly. "Flowers don't hide knives." He picked up his keys, forced a tender smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Think about it. I'll call in the morning." "Call whoever you like," I said. "On June 10th, call me co-owner." He left. The door sighed shut. I slid the waiver into a plastic sleeve, labeled it "not signed," and filed it behind the certified deed. Then I wrote one clean line on a fresh card and tucked it on top of Binder A, 2 owners, 2 signatures. The rain eased. The house listened. I turned off the lamp and let the room keep that sentence lit. April 12th. The sky hung low like it wanted to overhear. I spent the morning on hold with the bank while the kettle clicked and cooled. When a supervisor finally came on, her voice was starch and policy. "Mrs. Carter, the hold on your debit card was initiated April 2nd at 11:02 a.m. by the primary account manager." "Only my card," I said. "Yes, ma'am." I wrote the time in my book. Numbers behave when they're watched. At 6:40 p.m., Caleb arrived, dripping from the rain, my boy trying to be both bridge and map. He hugged me, then eyed the neat battlefield spread across the table. "Mom, what is all this?" "Proof," I said gently. He picked up the waiver, the letter about my health, the copy of the deed. His brow tightened. "Dad said this was a misunderstanding. He's trying to fix taxes. You're stressed." "Stressed women misplace keys," I said. "I keep ledgers." "Mom." He set the papers down like they burned. "If you show up at closing and make a scene, it'll ruin him." "I don't make scenes," I said. "I make records." He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly 12 again. "What do you want?" 2 chairs. My name on the line. He said he can wire you $150,000 now and— "Math first," I said. "Half of 485 is $242,500 before costs we both sign. We can be generous after we're equal." He flinched at equal. He asked if I'd talk to you. He said you've been forgetful. I met his eyes. Look at the dates, baby. Health letter yesterday. Card freeze 11:02 a.m. on the 2nd. Calendar invite for June 10th. Forgetfulness isn't the problem here. He's my father, he said, small. And I'm your mother, I said. You don't have to pick a person, you have to pick the truth. Silence. The kind that rearranges furniture. He swallowed. I told him I wouldn't lie for him. But Mom, could you please not blow this up? Can we handle it quiet? This is quiet, I said. Quiet is me sitting at a table with proof while men raise their voices around glass walls. He looked toward the hall, at the dent in the baseboard from his old scooter, at a whole childhood stacked in corners. What happens if you're wrong? I apologize, I said. On paper. And if he's wrong? Then the paper apologizes for him, I said, and slid the certified deed across the table so he could feel the raised seal with his own fingers. Touch that. That bump is the county saying I exist. He pressed his thumb to it, eyes shining. I don't want to lose either of you. You won't, I said. You might lose a story. He nodded, jaw tight, and stood. He asked if I'd testify you've been confused lately. A pause opened between us, wide as a road. What did you say? I said no, he whispered. But he'll ask again. Tell him your mother keeps receipts, I said. Tell him the receipts keep her. He hugged me hard, then left with the rain. The house exhaled. I sat a while and listened to the quiet tick of the kitchen clock. Mercy rose in me like a reflex, then met the edge I'd filed sharp for 32 years. Mercy can be many things. In my house, it wasn't a signature. I picked up my pen and wrote the only sentence I'd need on June 10th. Please note in your file that I am present. April 13th. The morning light came in clean, like it had washed its hands. I was buttering toast I didn't want when my phone rang. Ruth, it's Elaine. Hearing her was like finding a flashlight in a drawer that hadn't been opened in years. Tell me you have facts, I said. Better, she answered. A screen and a stamp. Papers rustled. I'm looking at your parcel. Owners, Marcus Carter and Ruth Carter. No transfer, no power of attorney on file. Nothing's moved since 2011. I breathed out slow. Say it again. Your name is still on the title. A beat. And a friend at Jackson Title, off the record, confirmed a preliminary file. Seller listed as Marcus only. Buyer initials JT note says, spousal waiver anticipated. Have you been through something similar? Like the word tasted
Tell us
wrong.
your story in the comments.
They're planning
below.
my absence.
We read
Then
every
we plan
comment.
your presence.
It's important
she
for
said.
us to know we're not
Email me
alone.
from the address you want on record. I'll reply from my notary account with a single sentence. As of April 13th, county records show Ruth Carter as co-owner. You'll print it. You'll carry it. You'll breathe easier. Elaine, I said. I could cry. Don't. Ink runs, she said gently. Also, if you arrive at the title office before any signatures and show ID, they have to pause the file. I looked at the clock and pictured a glass room and my chair in it. Then I'll be early. Last thing, she added. Do you want me there? I want your stamp in the building, I said. And your eyes. Good. I'll bring the cactus on my keychain. He never dies. Her email landed while we were still on the phone. Headers clean, subject line neat as a courtroom label. Co-owner confirmation. I printed it and slid the warm paper under my palm. It hummed like a small machine on the side of the truth. At 10:02 a.m., and a voicemail arrived from a bright voice I recognized from the realtor's note. Hi, Mrs. Carter, Jack Turner, JT. If we can keep June 10th, we're flexible on price. Call me back? I saved the voicemail to a folder labeled audio and wrote one line on a card. Buyer acknowledges me. It's amazing what a single sentence can do to a woman's spine. By afternoon, the house felt taller. I made a second pot of coffee just to smell courage and spread my tools across the dining table like instruments on a surgical tray. Deed copy, Elaine's email, the letter about my health, the unsigned waiver, the florist's receipt with today's date. I laid my 1991 pen across the top, an old soldier waiting for orders. Marcus texted at 6:01 p.m. We should talk about what you're planning. I typed back. "I'm planning to be present." He replied, "You'll regret it." I set the phone face down and listened to the tick of the kitchen clock, steady, neutral, uninterested in threats. Through the window, the crepe myrtle had pulled pink into its edges, like a blush that had decided to stay. I opened my calendar and blocked June 10th, 9:15 a.m. Arrive. Room B. 2 more words beneath it. Be recorded. Then I pressed my thumb to the raised county seal again, the paper pushing back like a heartbeat I could depend on. Pause everything. Could they? April 15th. I opened the laptop like a vault and started what I used to teach interns on their first week, chain of custody. Evidence is only as strong as the hands that carry it. First, the county portal, our address glowing on a plain page. Owners, Ruth Carter and Marcus Carter. Last transfer, 2011. I took a full-page screenshot with the time in the corner, printed it warm, and wrote in the margin. Collected by R. Carter, 04:15, 7:18 a.m. Next, emails. I created a folder called Closing, 610, and moved everything inside. Elaine's note, the realtor comps, the title letter inviting me to a meeting I wasn't supposed to survive. I printed the email headers, from, to, date, because gossip doesn't have headers. Proof does. I called the buyer from a number that doesn't ring back when I'm making dinner. He answered bright. "Jackson Turner." "This is Ruth Carter," I said. "The co-owner." A small silence. Then, "Of course. We'll make sure you're included." I hit record on my phone the second he said included. 30 seconds later, I had a confession shaped like courtesy. I exported the audio and labeled it JTT confirms J co-owner 0415.wave. You can't argue with a file name that neat. On the banker's letter he sent at noon, proof of funds, I circled the words that matter in any room where men wear suits. Available, liquid, sufficient. I didn't care about his money. I cared that it would have to pass through my name. By early afternoon, the table had a spine. N1, signals, calendar invite, card freeze time, buyer call. N2, paper, certified deed, Elaine's email, title's own line, both owners must execute. N3, voice, the voicemail saved, the buyer acknowledging me on a clean recording. N4, waiting, the space where the final proof would sit like a last domino. Contract corrected or a confession that broke cleanly. I kept details but trimmed the fat. Where the old me would say ACH and wire summaries, the new me wrote 3 years of small transfers to a shell with Marcus's initials. Same day every month. Pattern is a fingerprint. Then I printed the bank page that showed the dates, not the jargon. When my hand cramped, I stood and walked the route I'd tested in my head. Front door, tote on shoulder, keys in bowl, car ignition, midtown garage, elevator up, room B. Arrival is a ritual. You practice it until fear gets bored. At 3:50 p.m., an email slipped in from accounts mcholdings.llc.com asking title to route proceeds to an account ending in 4412. I didn't need to know the bank to know the intention. I forwarded it to the closing officer with one line. 2 sellers, 2 wires. Her reply came quick and clean. Acknowledged. At 4:22, I opened a new document called June 10th Playbook and wrote the sentences I'd say if my throat went dry. Please note in your file that I am present. Proceeding without me is a title defect. I am stating that on the record. My name belongs on the seller line. I printed them on index cards and slid them into the front pocket of my tote. I didn't expect to forget, but fighters keep scripts too. The sun slid low, laying stripes across the binders. The house felt like a courtroom after the jury leaves, quiet, heavy, honorable. I capped my pen and placed it exactly where my fingers would find it first. Should I tip my hand now or let the room learn my name at the glass wall? Preparation looks boring until it saves your life. On April 20th, I opened a fresh document and titled it, The Way a Woman Titles a Promise. June 10th, Playbook. Then I started building the room before I ever walked into it. Presence. I called Jackson Title Midtown and asked about parking, lobby flow, and which conference room kept the morning light. Room B, the receptionist said. Closest to reception. I wrote it down, then blocked my calendar. June 10th, 9:15 a.m. Arrive. Ask for room B. Be recorded. Notice. I printed 3 letters on clean paper, each with the same spine. Ruth Carter, recorded co-owner, will attend closing and will not execute waiver or POA. Proceeding without her constitutes a defect. 1 to Jackson Title. 1 to Marcus's attorney, the letterhead I'd already tasted under the orchids. 1 to JT's agent. I mailed them certified, scanned the green slips, and slid them under a tab labeled Notices Served. Money. I opened a new account at the credit union on La Vista. The teller's acrylic nails tapped the counter while she printed my wire-in instructions. I sealed them in an envelope marked If When Proceeds and slipped it into the tote. I wanted my half to have a place to land that only I could open. Counsel. I found a property attorney named Mae Vaughn, whose voicemail sounded like a locked drawer. I don't need litigation, I told her when she called back. I need a shadow in the building. She took a $1,750 retainer and said, I'll be in the lobby at 9:45 reading the paper. I liked her already. Recording. Georgia is one-party consent. I bought a $39 keychain recorder that didn't look like anything, clipped it inside my tote, and tested it in the kitchen. Clear. I printed the statute and paper-clipped it to the device manual, more for my nerves than anyone else's. Paper. I built 3 binders like scaffolding. A. Title and deed. Certified deed. County snapshot. Elaine's co-owner email. B. Closing. The Alta draft with seller. Marcus Carter circled. The we cannot proceed without both owners line highlighted. My certified letters. C. Money trails. Buyer proof of funds. The proceeds diversion email. My 2 sellers. 2 wires. Reply. The credit union envelope. Each tab got a label in neat print. I made a cover sheet for binder A that said, Ruth Carter, co-owner in a font that made space behave. Then I drove to the building. Midtown garage, 3rd floor, the elevator that opens to a lobby where people carry pens like weapons they've never had to use. I walked it like a dress rehearsal, reception desk, glass corridor, room B, and noted the small things a person forgets. The bowl of mints, the hum of the copier, the angle that catches your reflection so you can watch yourself sit down and not apologize for taking the head of the table. On May 3rd, Marcus texted Caleb on our old family thread. Son, convince your mother to accept $160K now and skip the closing. I replied with a screenshot of the county portal. Owners, Ruth and Marcus. Under it, I typed, Logistics require ink. Caleb left the chat. The silence hurt, but truth has sharp edges. On May 7th, I filed a notice of interest with the county. Redundant, maybe, but it felt like closing a window a second time before a storm. The clerk's stamp hit the paper like a heartbeat. By June 1st, Jackson Title emailed a confirmation. Closing 6:10 a.m., room B. This time they CC'd both of us. I printed it, hole-punched it, and slid it into binder B with a small, private satisfaction I didn't owe anyone. That night, I laid the manila folder, the one I labeled in 2011, on top of the binders and placed my old 1991 pen across it like a level. When you arrange a room properly, fear runs out of chairs. I set an index card on top of everything, the first line I'd speak at the glass wall if my voice dared tremble. Please note in your file that I am present. Would the room be ready for me, or for the truth I was bringing with me? June 9th, heat pressed its forearm against the windows. I set the dining table the way I wanted tomorrow to feel. Binder A centered, B and C to the right, the manila folder on top, the keychain recorder tucked under an index card like a heartbeat hiding under a blouse. I brewed coffee for the smell of courage and didn't drink a drop. The door opened at 8:11 p.m. Marcus came in with the caution of a man who knows what he broke but not where the shards are. He clocked the binders. He tried a smile. What is all this? Tomorrow, I said. Room B, 10 a.m. He laughed. A single, brittle note. You booked a room? I booked my presence. I didn't look away. He sat, elbows spread, taking up space, the old performance. Ruth, I don't want a spectacle. Then stop writing scripts that need one. I'm offering you an out. He held up his phone like it could bless him. I wire $160,000 at 9 a.m. You stay home. We skip the theater. Half of the agreed price splits when both owners sign, I said. Not before, not behind my back. His jaw clicked. Taxes, Ruth. You don't understand the layers. I understand subtraction, especially when it happens without consent. He looked at the manila folder like it had teeth. You went through my things. I went through my house, I said, and found a HUD draft with seller, Marcus Carter, alone. I found a letter declaring me unavailable due to health concerns. I found a waiver that would make you my pen. I tapped the folder. I found what you hoped I wouldn't. He stared, calculating. Then his tone softened, the old honey coming off the shelf. We built a life, Ruth. Don't turn 32 years into a courtroom. We built a life, I agreed. And then you tried to sell our roof without my name. He glanced at the recorder on my tote. Are you recording this? Georgia is one-party consent, I said, and for once, I'm the party. He stood too fast, palms on the table. If you show up tomorrow and embarrass me, I don't show up to embarrass, I said. I show up to exist. You're going to make people talk. People already are. They'll talk either way. Tomorrow they'll talk about the truth. He moved to the window and stared out at the crepe myrtle, pink now, stubborn and alive. Caleb will hate this. Caleb will survive this, I said. Hate belongs to the man who tried to erase his mother's name. He turned back, older somehow, the suit fitting the wrong story. Last chance, take the wire, stay home. I'll take my chair, I said, and my pen. He searched my face for something he could use and found nothing he hadn't already tried. You used to be kinder. I used to be trusting, I said. Kindness is still here. It just doesn't sign blind. We stood in a silence that remembered every bill paid on time and every anniversary card that meant what it said, until the cards stopped meaning anything. He picked up his keys, then set them down, picked them up again. If you step into that office tomorrow, he said, voice low, I'll tell everyone you've lost it. I'll make sure our son believes me. My throat tightened, but my voice stayed level. You don't own the truth, Marcus. You rented it from me for 32 years. He didn't answer. He left the house like a man leaving a room that refused to lie for him. I clicked the lamp off. The binders kept their shape in the dark. I pressed my palm to the manila folder one last time and slid it into my tote. The clock in the kitchen ticked once, then once more, counting down to 10 a.m., counting up to me. June 10th, 9:17 a.m. The air in Jackson Title Midtown was the kind that holds its breath. I wore my navy dress, the one with sleeves strong enough to stand on their own, and shoes that made quiet promises against the marble floor. The receptionist smiled too wide. Good morning. Ruth Carter, I said, handing over my ID. Co-owner of 1248 Briarwood. I'm here for the 10 o'clock closing. Her eyes flicked down to the file on her screen, then back up. Yes, ma'am. Room B. You're early. I like to be recorded, I said. Please note that in the file. Room B was glass on 3 sides, light spilling in like truth through a crack. I took the head chair, laid binder A in the center, B and C beside it, and placed the manila folder on top. The keychain recorder blinked under my index card. Proceeding without me is a title defect. At 9:25, Elaine appeared in the doorway, black blazer, stamp case in hand, that tiny cactus swinging from her keychain. She smiled like backup. Ready? I was born ready, I said. Just didn't know what for. At 9:32, the closing officer entered. I'm Tasha, she said, polite and neutral. Confirming identities. I slid my ID across. Ruth Carter, co-owner, no waivers signed, no power of attorney filed. Please copy these for your records. Her eyes flicked over the documents. Calm, efficient. Yes, ma'am. Without both signatures, we can't proceed. Say that again, I said, tapping the recorder. She did. And that was the first sound of justice that morning. Steady, administrative, impossible to argue with. At 9:38, the buyer came in. JT, all charm and cufflinks. Mrs. Carter, so glad you could make it. I don't miss my own sale, I said. He laughed nervously, took a seat, and folded his hands like prayer without faith. Then Marcus arrived. His tie was tight, his face already losing the performance. Behind him came his attorney, tall, slick, expensive-smelling. "Ruth," Marcus said, as if greeting a stranger in an elevator. "Marcus." He motioned for his lawyer to begin. The man smiled too long. "We have a prepared waiver for Mrs. Carter." "No," I said. The lawyer blinked. "Perhaps she hasn't reviewed—" "No." I slid the certified deed to the center of the table. "My name is on the property, still, since 2011. And according to this draft," I flipped open the Alta HUD, "you attempted to sell without me." Marcus shifted. "Ruth, don't do this here." "This is exactly where to do it," I said. "You brought business to a table. I brought paper." Elaine stepped forward and set her notary stamp on the edge like punctuation. "All parties present," she said quietly. The lawyer tried again. "Mrs. Carter, we could resolve this amicably." "Amicable would have been honesty," I said. "This is math." Tasha, the closing officer, cleared her throat. "Given the record of co-ownership, we can't proceed with a unilateral sale." Marcus's voice cracked. "Tasha, we discussed—" "With Mr. Carter," she said. "Not Mrs. Carter." He turned toward me, color high. "You could have just let me handle it." "I tried," I said. "You mistook silence for consent." The room felt like it was breathing now, people realizing where the air belonged. I lifted the pen, my old one from 1991, and signed my name under the updated seller line. Ruth Carter, co-owner. The sound of ink against paper was louder than any argument. Tasha slid the form toward Marcus. "Your turn." He stared at it, the lines swimming. "Sign, Marcus," I said softly. "For once, with company." He signed. The buyer nodded once and closed his folder. "We'll regroup," he said, and left, polite as defeat. When the door clicked shut, I looked through the glass wall at my reflection standing steady next to his. I didn't smile. I just breathed. No one raised their voice. No one needed to. Justice has a sound. It's paper turning. The sale didn't explode. It simply unraveled. By noon, JT had emailed to withdraw. "We'll revisit after ownership is clarified." The office copied both of us. Clarified meant I won. Elaine hugged me at the elevator. "You lit the room without raising your voice." "I just turned on the lights," I said. By 3, Atlanta's gossip circuit was already awake. Agents texted, "Are you the woman with the binders?" Neighbors messaged hearts and praise hands. The church ladies went biblical. The Lord loves documentation. At 4:22, a photo started circling. Me in navy, finger on a tab, Marcus Gray and Small beside me. Caption, "Briarwood Queen takes room B." I didn't post it. I didn't have to. Truth travels better than hashtags. At 5:30, Caleb came by. His eyes were red but proud. "Mom, they're saying you embarrassed him." "I know. He's hiding at Uncle Devin's. He says you humiliated him in front of everyone." "I didn't humiliate him," I said. "He did that when he lied." He sat, looking at the papers stacked like steps to freedom. "You kept everything." "I always did," I said. "You just thought I was tidy." He smiled, then frowned again. "He told people you've been confused. That's how he tried to explain the paperwork." "I've been clear my whole life," I said. Confusion was his favorite story until the receipts started talking. He looked at the certified deed on top, still sealed in plastic. "What happens now?" "I sell," I said. "On my terms. My listing. My price." He hesitated. "Do you want me to help?" I took his hand. "No, baby. Just watch. Women your age need to see this." By 7, I was making dinner when Marcus texted, "You ruined me." I stared at the words until they blurred, then typed back, "No, Marcus, you did that when you forgot who owned the house." At 8:12, I checked the county site. Our title still read the same. Owners, Ruth Carter and Marcus Carter. A small square of pixels, but that's all it takes to anchor a woman who nearly vanished. At 9:00, I turned off the lights and walked to the porch. The crepe myrtle glowed under the street lamp, pink as redemption. The air smelled like paper and rain. Behind me, on the table, the binders waited. Neat, labeled, final. Tomorrow I'd call the realtor. Tomorrow I'd write a new listing. But tonight, for the first time in 32 years, the house felt like mine again. What will he lose next? June 14th, 10:06 a.m., Jenna spread the listing agreement on my kitchen island like a map you only unfold when you're sure of the road. Price? She asked, pen ready. $498,000, I said. We'll let the market tell on itself. She smiled. Primary contact? Ruth Carter, co-owner and decision-maker, I answered, and watched her type my name first. It fit like a key finally turning. We staged with what I owned. Lemon bowl in the sunlight, quilts my mother stitched, 0 rented lies. Her photographer floated through rooms like a quiet breeze. Click, 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 truth in frames. By 4:30 p.m., the listing went live. An hour later, the first showing request hit my phone. The second came with a note from a nurse on night shift. Heard what you did in room B. Respect. I watered the crepe myrtle and let that word soak in. Marcus called at 11:12 a.m. the next day. If you bump to 5:05, he said, we can what? I asked softly. Pretend a waiver never touched my table? We're priced to move, Marcus, not to posture. He sighed into the receiver, a sound like a sail fighting wind. At least let my attorney handle the counters. 2 owners, 2 signatures, I said, then hung up before he could turn logistics into nostalgia. Offers stacked like hymnals by June 20th. 2 conventional, 1 cash at $492,000 with a 20-day close. Clean inspection. No spousal anything. I circled 492 and wrote on my terms next to it. Counter at 495? Jenna asked. I want sleep more than $3,000, I said. Take the clean one. We opened escrow with Tasha again. This time, the subject line got the ceremony right. Sellers, Ruth Carter and Marcus Carter, 1248 Briarwood. I printed it and slid it into binder B. Victories deserve a binder too. Marcus showed up to grab boxes and stood in the hallway staring at the dent from Caleb's scooter crash years ago. We raised him here, he said. We did, I said. We'll keep him wherever we go next. His eyes went wet, then hard. Will you say something at church so people stop? I'll say the truth, I said. It calms itself. June 29th, room A, 10 in the morning. Same building, new weather inside me. Tasha walked us through line by line. I signed Ruth Carter, seller, my old 1991 pen moving like it had waited for this exact loop to complete. The wire split, half to Marcus, half to the credit union on La Vista. I watched the confirmation bloom on paper. 242,184. I wrote it on my card, underlined it twice, and let my shoulders drop for the first time in months. The buyer, a woman in scrubs with circles under her eyes and joy in her voice, hugged me. Thank you for keeping your name, she whispered. My daughter's watching. Marcus turned to me when the last initial dried. Does this make you happy? It makes me equal, I said. Happy is next month. Keys slid across the table, metal singing a short, honest song. We stood. The glass door opened. I didn't look back at the chair I used to apologize for taking. On the sidewalk, Jenna squeezed my hand. You want a photo? She asked. No, I said, smiling small. I brought something better. I tapped my tote where the binders rested, weight that finally felt like light. Would he dare call again? July 2nd, my new porch faced the kind of morning that forgives you for staying. Sun on brick, cicadas starting their shift. I set the lemon bowl on the counter and opened the manila folder, deed, 2011, the one that watched me become visible. Caleb carried in the last box and a small crepe myrtle we'd coaxed from a cutting. New roots, he said, grinning. He set it by the steps, dirt on his thumbs, his father's jaw softening into something that belonged to us again. Elaine stopped by on her way downtown, that tiny cactus swinging from her keychain like a good luck joke that outlived the punchline. You need anything notarized to celebrate? She teased. I need you to witness, I said. I laid out the trail on the kitchen island. Certified deed, the county seal still raised like a pulse. County snapshot, owners Ruth and Marcus. Alta draft with seller. Marcus circled, the lie that taught me to breathe like a lawyer. Title email, we cannot proceed without both owners. Wire confirmation, 200 40 184, and finally a printout from 6:40 a.m. Mortgage, 0.00. Proof didn't gloat. It rested. Elaine touched the zero with her fingertip. Clean, she said. Clean, I echoed. My phone buzzed and lit with a name I once wrote under the word husband. Marcus. I'm sorry. I let it sit. Some messages are museum pieces. Look, don't touch. Caleb leaned on the island, reading me instead of the papers. You kept us, Mom. I kept my name, I said, smiling. The rest learned how to follow. He nodded, and we stepped onto the porch. The young crepe myrtle flickered in the breeze, a little tree already stubborn. Across the street, a boy dragged a ribbon of laughter behind a bicycle too big for him. Life kept its audit. I went back inside to the drawer where I keep the tools that built this ending. Stapler, sticky notes, the 1991 ballpoint that never learned to lie. On top waited the one thing I'd bought just for this day, a small, red rubber stamp. Paid. I set the stamp next to the deed, inked it, and gave the page the ceremony I'd been denied for months. Press, lift, final. The word bloomed square and certain. Not angry, not loud, just true. Caleb exhaled like he hadn't realized he was holding his breath. Elaine smiled the way women smile when the bill finally matches the service. On the windowsill, I set the stamp to catch the morning. Let the sunlight find its edges. I poured coffee strong enough to hold a spoon and watched the steam rise. Quiet, faithful, unafraid. Somewhere, Marcus might be telling a better version of events. Let him. The archive in my tote tells the only one that matters. I picked up the folder, slid everything inside, and closed the brass fastener with that satisfying click I've come to love. A door closing from my side. At my age, I don't shout. I document. If this story gave you strength, help us by sharing, liking, and hitting the notification bell. We'd love to hear in the comments which part of the story you liked most. See you tomorrow.